We are happy to have Professor Melanie Brucks here from Columbia University. She got her PhD from Stanford, graduate school of business. She studied a lot of interesting topics, including innovation, creativity, effective technology, and consumer behavior, something we've heard a lot about at this conference. She cited such places as the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and BBC. Without further ado, we're going to hear about video call glitches from Melanie.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So I study virtual communication, and today I'm going to talk about some work that I've done with Jacqueline Rifkin, who is at Cornell, and Jeff Johnson, who is at UMKC. And we've heard a lot about this massive transition to AI at this conference, right? But there's another massive transition that's happening too. So just out of curiosity, how many of you used a video call in the last week? Okay, and how many of you participated in like a video interview before, either as an interviewer or as an interviewee? Yeah, so I think we can all see the extent to which virtual communication has permeated our lives. What I think is so striking is just how many aspects we're seeing it in. So we talked about hiring. Most hiring processes have some kind of video interaction now. We know that most employees want to work in these hybrid environments, which will involve a lot of virtual communication with their colleagues. And then specifically more in marketing, we know that a lot of events are now becoming virtual, and there's lots of communication now over video to connect to our consumers. And that's ignoring telehealth, education, the legal system, right? It is permeating every aspect of our communication. And what I find pretty amazing is 10 years ago, almost all of these things were primarily in person. So this is a massive and rapid transition that we are observing to a completely different way to communicate. And what I'm interested in is how this affects communication. What are some downstream consequences to shifting to all this video communication rather than communicating in person? Now, a common question that people ask is, can we replicate the specialness of in-person over video, right? Is it the same to be on video as it is to be in person? And that's an interesting question, but I think that we ignore often new issues that we introduce. Not just can we replicate in person, but what are we introducing when we start communicating over video or over technology compared to in person? And what I'm going to talk about today is one issue that I think is really overlooked, and that is just minor audiovisual glitches. So I'm going to find some just fleeting errors in the audio or visual transmission, so like freezes, lags, that kind of thing. And what I think is important is we do not glitch in person, right? This is not a thing that used to happen. This is not, like, we don't experience this in real life. And now all of a sudden, we are talking to people all the time, and they are glitching while we are talking to them. And we wanted to see and make sure, I mean, I experience glitches all the time, but I want to make sure it wasn't just me. So we asked people how often they experience glitches, and we do find they're quite prevalent. So around 1/3 of calls in a survey that we ran were reported to experience glitches during them. This is a very common issue that I think we're kind of ignoring right now and focusing more on like big, exciting, sexy things like AI. Meanwhile, we're glitching all the time during the call that we're having today, right? Now, what you might be thinking is, sure, like, we glitch all the time. I experience this every day, but like, who cares? Like, we're over it, right? We're used to it, glitch happens. I'm not really concerned about it. And if you're thinking that way, we found that a lot of people agree with you. So we interviewed salespeople who use video to communicate for their jobs, and everyone had the same general response, which is that, sure, like glitches are occurring, but we all are used to it. We know what it's, we know that this is not really their fault. This is something that we're, used to experience, and we get it, right? We don't think that our customers are annoyed or bothered by it. Or one person even went as far as to say, like, if they're not going to work with me because I glitched, that's, I'm not a good fit for them. I don't even want that person anyway. So this is a general, feeling that we observe when we talk to people about glitches. And what I'm going to show you today is that this is costing you to think that glitches do not matter. That they actually have a much larger impact than you might expect. And that this is actually a pretty fundamental reason why it's happening. I don't know how many of you have heard the uncanny valley. That's normally applied to like robots or different kinds of technology. I'm going to show this also applies to you when you are glitching on a video. It's a very fundamental discomfort. And that by ignoring this, this is a risk that you are taking on every day when you're having your video calls. So let's talk about why these glitches are so damaging. Well, the reason is actually what's the best part of video conferencing, which is it actually does a pretty good job of conveying this sense that a person is right in front of you, right? Think about why you would pick talking over video compared to on the phone. You can see the person's face. You can see their expressions, their body language. It's all happening in real time. It does such a good job that you start to kind of simulate that there's a person that's sitting across from you, right? And when we ask these same salespeople, they agree. So we ask them, do you use video when you are talking to your customers? And every single person said 100% of the time they want to use video. And the reason is it feels more real, right? That they're more of a real person. People buy from people, right? And so I need my camera on to show that I'm a person, right? I'm not as real of a person if you can't see me and like engage with me in real time, right? And I think this is true, and we have some work that shows this, that video calls are humanizing. It makes that person very concrete and real in front of you. So as you're talking to someone and you see them on the screen, you start kind of simulating that they're actually there in front of you. Your brain kind of fills in those gaps, right? And that's great until there's a glitch, right? And all of a sudden, you realize that you are not really interacting with a person. You are interacting with this digital rendering of a person. This is actually a screen in front of you. And this realization that you're not really interacting with a person right now, you're interacting with a screen, it feels uncanny. It feels eerie or creepy. So many of you have heard of the uncanny valley. This is this effect in robotics and animation that shows that you as a robot gets more and more human up until a point. And then, if it's too close to being human, it feels creepy, it feels eerie, it's uncanny, you don't like it, right? And the research shows that one reason this happens is because your brain's expecting a human, and you have these ingrained expectations of what a human looks like and acts, and then it violates those expectations, and violating these fundamental expectations of humanness is creepy, it's weird. And what we're going to show you today is just like an artificial agent can be creepy, if it almost looks human but kind of breaks the spell a little bit, so is a person on video who seems human, but then does a very non-human thing, which is to glitch. So today what I'm going to try to show you is there's a penalty to these video call disruptions, these glitches. That the reason why it goes beyond just it's frustrating or it's annoying. It's actually a more fundamental perceptual experience of uncanniness. And then I'm going to talk about what you can do about it. Although I have to admit, it's pretty hard to turn off the effect, and it's something that I've thought a lot about because I still glitch to this day, and now I'm a little bit more worried about it. Okay, so the first study was glitches in the wild. We collected, some other group collected a bunch of calls on video that happened organically during COVID. And they recorded all the videos, and they had all the transcripts, and we had access to all of them. And what we looked at was just when glitches organically occurred during the calls. And in this case, it was around 1/4 of calls experienced a glitch. And then we just looked at, if the video glitched or not, how that affect the connection that this group had. And here's an example of like what a glitch looked like in this study.
Not that I'm a scientist, but do you pick up enough stuff that like, yeah, I gotta know it's made out of this or it does this or...
This always happens every time I do this. The video also glitches. Every time! And I don't know why. It feels like the universe is trying to prank me. Okay, so you saw a little bit of the glitch before the other glitch happened. But an important thing is often the information is not actually disrupted. You can still hear what the person's saying. It's just weird in some way. Like the person's face doesn't freeze for a couple of seconds as they're talking, right? What we found was in this natural conversation of people that's getting to know each other, they felt less connected to a person if there was a glitch that happened during a video call. They liked that person less. And actually speaking of like being recognized and understood from a prior talk, they felt less recognized and understood by that person when a glitch happened. So that was just measuring glitches. We wanted to actually experimentally induce this. So we, in this case, want to look at a sales pitch from a financial advisor. And then control condition was this unaltered video that looked like a Zoom call. So someone was talking to you. And in the glitch condition, we made it as conservative as possible. We put very, very short freezes during natural pauses in speech. And so this is not the case that you're missing out on what they're saying. It's not even making the video that much longer. There's just these weird little freezes that a human normally doesn't do. And hopefully this one doesn't glitch, but we'll see what happens.
I'm a financial advisor for Caldwell Financial, which specializes in investment offerings designed to help prepare you for retirement. We offer thousands of mutual funds.
So as you can see, this is a short little freeze that's happened 4 times throughout the call. And what we found was people were less interested in working with that advisor when these little freezes happened during the call. And we actually measured how uncanny it was too. We found that people found it much creepier and stranger when these tiny little freezes were happening throughout the call. And don't like mediation, but basically what we find here is that when a glitch happens, feels more uncanny, that predicts how much they don't want to work with the advisor afterwards. Now you might be interested in like how much we can quantify this cost of glitches. We want to get a more striking metric than a difference on a 1 to 7 scale. So this case, we did a health coach. We talked about creators a lot yesterday in the conference, where you're now doing these calls or these meetings with consumers and giving your services like a health coach might, like that you meet on Instagram. And so we had them watch a video of a health coach, and there either was glitches or there wasn't. And again, they were during these little pauses. And here we found when there was no glitch, people said that they wanted to talk to this health coach more 77% of the time. When there was a glitch, that dropped down to 61%. It was a massive change from a couple of little freezes that happened throughout the call. I should also mention that we always make it clear that the meeting afterwards is going to be in person. So it's not like I don't want to experience glitches in the future. I literally feel differently about that person and meeting them in person in the future if they glitch during the call. Okay, so what I want you to take away from this is if you think that glitches don't matter very much, you're wrong, right? They actually have a pretty large impact on the bottom line. And this is going to decrease your chance of conversion. It's going to decrease your chance of making a positive impression with the person you're talking to. So I want to now look at what I'm talking about of this like fundamental aversion or this perceptual discomfort that people feel. Also in something that's very relevant for me, which is hiring, because in marketing at least, we now do our first round of interview almost exclusively on Zoom. And I have seen glitches happen during these interviews. And so it feels super relevant to look at how a glitch during a video interview might impact your outcome. And I also wanted to look at different kinds of glitches. So we made 10 different glitch types. And these are all from the very first study I showed you, where we actually looked at all the different glitches that happen naturally in those videos. I'm sure you have experienced every single one of these at least once, and probably much more than once. So we have things like distorted video where it got pixelated, a lag, an echo, different things like that. And we first wanted to see if there might be variance in how uncanny or creepy these different kinds of glitches were. So we told people they're going to be hiring a new sales manager. Their job is to interact with them in the office. Now, please watch one of these videos, and then afterwards we just asked them if it was uncanny. What we found was really interesting. There's a lot of variance in how uncanny this was. This is different from control. So for example, a fleeting freeze was very, very uncanny, whereas a lag was not as uncanny. And fleeting video loss was not uncanny either, but a sustained video loss was. This is probably a very complicated question, why some things are creepier than others, and the robotics animation literature is still trying to figure it out. But the importance here is it's not just that glitches are bad. There's actually this variance in like what people think are creepy or weird. So now what we're going to do is show those same videos to a new set of people and ask them, do you want to hire this person? And then we're going to use how uncanny the glitches to predict their interest in hiring. Our prediction is that it's really not just disruption, like, oh, how frustrating, how annoying. If it's really about uncanniness, then as a glitch gets more uncanny, that should hurt people's evaluation of that candidate more, even controlling for disruptiveness. So that's what we looked at. We have uncanniness here on the x-axis and interest in hiring the candidate on the y. And we find this nice negative slope down where as the glitch gets more uncanny, people are less interested in hiring that candidate. Now, anyone want to guess, maybe not, what those two ones down here are that seem to be bad, independent of uncanniness? Any thoughts about something about glitch that would be particularly bad?
Long loss of video. Long loss of video.
Good, almost, yes. It's audio loss, actually. So it is a loss of something else, right? So if you're also missing information, that hurts independently of how uncanny it is. But just being uncanny itself is hurting evaluations. And one thing I think is really interesting here is comparing sustained freeze and fleeting freeze, because actually people say that the sustained freeze is more disruptive. They call it glitchier, and yet it's much less uncanny, and it hurts hiring much less than these little tiny freezes that seem to be much more uncanny.
A great fit, great fit.
I'm not going to show that to you. Okay, so the takeaway from this study is that it's really this fundamental perceptual bias. And I think it's a really interesting thing to think about, because the whole reason we're using video is that we want a humanized connection, right? It feels more real of a person when you're talking over video compared to when you're talking on the phone, for example. And you're literally making yourself less human when those videos glitch. So everyone always asks me, what can we do about it? When I presented this at Columbia, all the job candidates were like, what do I do? Like, how do I fix it? So I'll give you a couple of things that we've learned, but it's actually pretty hard to turn this off. So one thing that's kind of interesting is if the glitch is really about it being uncanny because humans don't behave that way, then if it's not happening to a human face, it shouldn't be as problematic. So we ran this study where we either had a person talking face-to-face to you, or we had them share a presentation. And then we either had a glitch or didn't have a glitch, and we looked at the interest with working with the financial advisor. And I'm going to skip this. Okay, so first of all, I just want to show you, they noticed the glitch in the stock footage and in the human face, right? So both situations, you are actually talking to someone face-to-face, or you're showing a presentation. If things are glitching, people notice. Remember this graph that people really notice the glitch, because what we find is when it's a shared presentation, they don't find it uncanny. So yes, glitches are happening I'm not creeped out by them when it's happening to a presentation rather than to a human face. And I only get this negative effect of a glitch when it's my face talking to you that glitches, not when it's just a shared presentation. So if you know that you're going to be glitching, one thing is to not have your face be the consequence of the glitch, right? Instead, share a presentation or something else to prevent it. So you don't get the humanizing premium if a glitch happens. So yeah, you might think a call is worse, but it's better if you think that you're going to be glitching. Now, a couple other things that people have mentioned. One is just tell people, hey, I'm going to glitch, right? If you warn people in advance, then maybe they won't be so creeped out. The short story is it doesn't work. And I'm going to show you why. So I'm warning you right now, you are going to see something uncanny. Okay, you're all prepared. I have set your expectation. Right? It still has a visceral response, and that's what's happening with a glitch. It's a visceral reaction. It is uncanny, it is weird. Even if you know it's going to happen, you're still creepy. All right, I'll move on to the slide. Okay, the other thing you can maybe do is humor. I don't know how many of you have heard of benign violation theory, but one of the ideas behind humor, and we actually heard about it a little bit yesterday with Ross's talk on breaking rules. But when one theory for humor is you take something that might feel like a violation and you make it benign, right? And so it's like this is inappropriate or this is wrong in some way, but the humor kind of makes it seem better. And so research shows this is actually a great way to cope with worry and concern, because when you make a joke, you're basically communicating to someone it's not a big deal, you don't have to worry about it. Only when the joke goes well, obviously. And so we try to make a joke. I'm unfortunately not very funny, and neither are my co-authors. We literally hired comedians from Fiverr, and our jokes performed similar to them, so I guess we're actually kind of funny, but they all did not perform well. And then I bought this book, What to Say When You're Dying on the Platform, and then jokes from glitches from like the 80s, where it's like, you know, if your microphone doesn't work or something, what do you say? And thankfully, for time reasons, I'm not going to show you the joke. Just know it's not that great. But what we find is that it does seem to help a little bit. So again, we replicate this negative effect of the glitch. If you acknowledge it, by the way, it just makes things worse. So don't say, hey, I know I'm glitched, like, I'm sorry. No, because now everyone's thinking about it more, feeling even creepier. But if you can do even a not very funny joke, it does seem to boost a little bit. And if you're actually funny, maybe it would work even better than that, because you're signaling, hey, this violation that feels super creepy, it's actually okay. We can all laugh about it. And I can kind of diffuse this negative reaction people are having. Okay, so don't apologize in advance, but if it does happen, you can use humor. And then lastly, I just want to mention, in case I haven't convinced you about how important it is to consider glitches, we also looked at one example in the legal context. And if you haven't been in a legal court hearing on Zoom, you probably know someone who has. I know at least 2 people who've done it in divorce proceedings. Another person who sent me this photo who was hit by a car, and she testified on Zoom. And we were able to get parole hearings on Zoom during COVID. And we were able to see when someone mentioned that a glitch happened during a parole hearing, which is arguably more important than almost any conversation we have on Zoom, right? And what we found was when there was no detected glitch during the parole hearing, around 60% of the people were granted parole. But when a glitch happened, that went down to 48%. So this is a serious thing to consider. We are kind of just throwing virtual communication into all of the different things that we're doing, and not considering that we're introducing new biases when we're doing that. So one thing I just want to mention is that you might be thinking this is a problem for now and might not be a problem in the future. But if right now a video call is uncanny when they glitch, imagine if you're in VR and Hortense is right next to me and she starts glitching. That's even weirder, right? That's even more uncanny. So we actually think that this could even get worse over time as technology improves. Because glitches will be more and more uncanny or eerie as they embed into our actual physical environment. So I just want you to keep in mind that yes, AI is a big deal, but that also means that humanity is a premium, and so don't lose it to a glitch.
We have time for a question.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Virtual backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
How does that factor into this? Because especially when interviewing people, my God, if they've got a distracting background,
Yes.
I honestly have a hard time focusing on them. Maybe that says more about me, but I don't know if anybody else has issues with virtual backgrounds or something. Does that play into this at all?
I think so. So there is some research that also shows that people find people less transparent when they don't have their background there, and so they trust them less. They're less authentic, speaking of authenticity. So there's that issue of other perceptions you make. I also think that, you probably all experienced this where someone's hand all of a sudden like disappears because it's whatever. That has to be uncanny. Hands also don't disappear. And so I think it would be a similar mechanism in the way I show too, where it would have a similar effect where it would be very creepy to people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.